Welcome to Black Girls Can Talk, the podcast where we dive into real, unfiltered conversations about what it means to be a Black woman in today's world. I'm your host, Dr. Dejana McCree, founder of Black Girls Can Talk. And here, we're creating a space where we can unpack everything from culture and beauty trends to mental health and the joys and challenges of Black womanhood. Whether you're here for the tea or looking for deep discussions, you're in the right place. So grab your seat at the table and let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Black Girls Can Talk. Today with me, I have my friend, Brenice, an HIV specialist, nurse practitioner, and PhD candidate. Come on, all that Black girl magic, yes. And we're just here to talk about what it means to be a Black girl in her line of work. I'm really, really excited to have you here today because, as I just told you, this is launching on March 10th, which is National Women and Girls HIV Awareness Day, AIDS Awareness Day, excuse me. And so all the stuff that we're talking, like, I love all of these episodes and talking to everybody, but this is like our jam, right? Yeah. HIV care, HIV prevention, sexual and reproductive health, all of those things. Mm-hmm. So I want you to introduce yourself to the people. Tell them who you are, because I know who you are, but they need to get to know who you are.
Yeah, thank you so much. So excited to be here. I'm Brenice DeRosa. As she mentioned, I am a HIV specialist, also work in infectious disease and addiction medicine. A nurse practitioner. I've worked in the healthcare field for over 15 years.
Come on.
Yes. Worked in women's health, labor and delivery, emergency medicine, addiction medicine. So all the things like mental health, sexual reproductive health, all the things that kind of go together. Mm-hmm. Currently finishing up, let's hope and pray, my dissertation. Yeah. I'm a 5th year and just wrapping up and hopefully could defend in the next coming months and get on out.
You will. Yeah, it's a long stretch to the finish line, right? But you've been doing it, you've been rocking it, and we thank you for your work because not only are, like I said, you're a PhD candidate, but you're actively in the field working as well. So that makes a world of a difference because you can actually apply your knowledge that you're learning in these, you're not in classes anymore, but in your dissertation and like what you're going to be doing and finding your research, you can apply to your actual practice. And that's super, super amazing. So I want to just get into straight out the gate. Let's talk about it. So as it relates to hot girl summer and sexual and reproductive health, let's talk about what that means and like how we as Black women need to be paying more attention to our sexual like we can't just be like, oh, it's hot girl summer, I'm about to be out here in the streets doing my thing. Like, we still have to keep it cute, very demure. We have, you know what I mean, we still have to be paying attention to certain stuff. So let's talk about as it relates to health disparities in particular, because we know a lot of the disparities, right? But I want you to tell the people what some of those are and like how we can have fun and have a hot girl summer without being hot during the summer.
Right. No, that's a good point, because it's like sometimes when I'm talking to girlfriends or even some patients, I'm like, can you really have hot girl summer uninformed?
No, that's
really
a good question.
Uninformed? So if you don't know like what potentially you're impacted by or how to really be empowered with all the information, all the tools in your tool belt, girl, you're just out here performing. So I think to truly have a real hot girl summer and to really enjoy and live life to your fullest, you need to have all the tools in your tool belt. Absolutely. Whether that's, PrEP for HIV prevention, whether that's carrying your own condoms and demanding it to be worn if that's your jam, whether that's picking and choosing who you're going to dance with, not dance with on the dance floor.
Come on.
Who you're twerking, not twerking, if it's a 2-step, not a 2-step. All those things like is empowerment and agency. And the more you know and the more tools you have in your tool belt, I think that's really how you truly could be that it girl in that hot girl summer. If you don't, if you're just out here navigating whatever, you're in the passenger seat of your life and you're not in the driver's seat, are you really in hot girl summer?
Oh, that's good. That's good. I want you to take us back to like, what was the turning point? Was it being in practice that made you start focusing on these things and like seeing those statistics like live out every day? And, or like, what was the, not even turning point, but what was the starting point? Let's go there. What was the starting point in this work for you?
So the starting point, my turning point are very different. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
that like you had that distinction. So I think the starting point was just even in undergrad. I majored in bio and psychology as an undergrad major. I wanted to go to med school initially. I thought
did
I
not know
wanted to be,
that.
yeah, I
Oh,
thought I
wow.
wanted to be an anesthesiologist, took MCATs,
Oh,
actually did
did
decent
you?
on MCATs, yeah, and
Oh,
everything, and applied
wow.
to med schools. And I met a wonderful nurse practitioner on campus
Oh, wow.
as I was building a club called it was called she called it short for SHAC. It was like Sexual Health like Alliance Club or something, where
Okay.
we were advocacy club, where we were connecting students with the health centers. And in that work with that nurse practitioner, Patricia Zapatak,
Come on. Hey,
she,
Patricia.
yeah, she's retired and living her best life right now. But in that community with her and just talking about the work of a nurse and a nurse practitioner and having that like agency, being able to prescribe, being able to create your own plan of care, that
Yeah.
really changed my
Yeah.
trajectory and made me decide nursing might be a better lane than like the medical model that I was seeing in different like internships and
Yeah.
things like that on my path to med school. So I literally graduated because I was a junior at this point.
Oh,
I didn't want to
really?
delay graduation. So I was like, I'm going to get this degree and then go back to school and become a nurse. And
Okay.
did like a hospital-based program, one of the oldest ones in the nation. That was part of the Yale umbrella. Did that program and then became a nurse and started on emergency medicine and transition to labor and delivery, where I'm caring for women during their most intimate moments, where they're bringing life into this world or dealing with devastation.
Yeah.
And just hearing all the different paths to motherhood that women experience really developed a bond and an appreciation for women that I think that is where my start was of like true feminism, true sisterhood, and set me on the path that I'm on now.
Yeah. And again, I know this, but I want you to talk about your reason. Statistics are very great reasons why, but your reason why for honing in on Black women.
Yeah, so then I was in as a labor and delivery nurse for several years. I became a sexual assault nurse examiner as well during my time. And then I graduated grad school, became a nurse practitioner, and I was running a Ryan White clinic as a sole provider in Connecticut. And time and time again, when I would get new patients, because I was like a new provider then, so I would try to get to know the patients, introduce myself, what's your origin story, how'd you get here? And time again, when I was speaking to women, especially Black women, because HIV disproportionately impacts the Black community. And when you're thinking about Ryan White programs, those are people who are underinsured and, you know, facing like, you know, socioeconomic disparities to really qualify for the Ryan White program. So time and time again, when I was speaking to the women, I'd say, you know, how'd you get here? What's your story? What is important for me to know about you? And there would be such disconnect and unawareness about their diagnosis. And some of these people would have been diagnosed 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and still would say, you know, I'm not sure what happened. I don't even know how I got here. They just told me, and I've just been on medicine forever. And I was like, wow, like even at diagnosis, there's a disconnect in your narrative, in your story. Then when I would try to get like colleagues to really say, okay, you're referring some people here for PrEP, why aren't we prescribing it in the prevention space, like in primary care and OBGYN? What's the problem? And people would say they don't have an at-risk population, but you're prescribing birth control. And
I'm sorry, because
the disconnect.
everyone is at risk, like especially depending upon your sexual practices.
Right. And first of all, it's like, what is risk? Like, you don't really know someone based on 15-minute conversation. You're having value judgments at the door where you're missing the mark. And the fact that you're prescribing birth control, and of course, birth control could be used for other things, signals to me that, like, hey, there's a potential opportunity here to talk to people about their sexual health.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was seeing system failures on the prevention side, system failures on the management side, And
Wow.
it was women who look like me, women,
Yeah.
Haitian women,
Yeah.
Black American women, all kinds of different groups of women. And there was major system failures. So that's kind of how I got into, okay, we need to do better in preventing, whether that's managing people appropriately and letting people know why it's important to take their medication, how they got here, in order to empower them to build their story based on fact and reality instead of having so many question marks in the chapters of their books.
Ooh,
so
come on.
I really, really felt the need to say, okay, if this is pursuing a PhD that's going to help me be able to do this work with this authority as a Black woman in a lot of white spaces, then that's the sacrifice that I'm going to do because it was just that important to me.
Yeah, you better talk about it. Now, I personally am not Haitian, but shout out to you. And I have a quick question because I think we often talk about HIV cases in Africa and other places. Like, are the numbers the same over there as far as like how we're impacted as Black women?
Yeah,
I could imagine.
It's a global issue as far as Black women globally are impacted by HIV. And with Haitians in particular is unique because in the 80s here when HIV first came about, Haitians were stigmatized. So when you think about the 4 H's like hemophilia, homosexual, heroin, IV drug users, and Haitians were the risk of what was contributing to HIV. So that stigma
is that real? Like
that's what the government
that's what they told people
was saying in America. So that stigma.
Girl, I need to do some more research. Hold on.
Yeah, they call it like the 4-H stigma. Yep. So that stuff is still pervasive to this day, but we often focus on the homophobia of it all.
Yeah, exactly.
The IV drug
For sure.
users of it all.
For sure.
We don't even talk about like hemophilia or Haitians. Like that's left out of the conversation oftentimes. But you see Haitians not wanting to even engage in HIV prevention or conversation. There's a lot of stigma and shame around even being diagnosed.
Yeah.
That creates these things to continue and a lack of transparency even in intimate relationships.
Yes. Wow. That's crazy. I'm so used to the narratives that you brought up, right? Like all of the homophobic, we all know how it came about, how it reached the nation, right? The story behind it. People don't often talk about the fact that even if you're in a monogamous relationship, even if you are a woman and you're with a man, like you may still be at risk. I have had people who were married say, I'm living with HIV and I got it from my husband. Yeah. And that's what I meant by everyone is at risk, because to your point of, do you really know who you're dealing with? Like, you know what I mean? Especially in the short encounters.
Right.
You may not.
Right. And, humans are flawed. As a Christian, I bring that lens to a lot of, like, how I navigate the world. Humans are humans. A sin is a sin is a sin.
It sure is. And not one is greater than the other. They're all equal.
Exactly. So we need to, like, be honest. And I think part of this work, especially in the HIV prevention space, is honing people's humanity. Understanding that you could be with somebody who means you well, who loves you to death, and they're not immune to slipping up. They're not immune to falling short to temptation. Things happen. How can you best safeguard yourself and taking full accountability and autonomy and agency for yourself? And that might be that you don't want to take PrEP.
Right.
It's all about having the information and making the decisions how it fits in your life.
Informed decisions, as you mentioned earlier. And I want to ask you a question that I often get asked, because you mentioned being a Christian, and, we resonate on that. Someone, or many people, not even someone, people have asked me, how do I do the work that I do, right? Because of the stigma that's surrounding HIV, research, prevention, treatment, all of those things, going back to the whole homosexuality is where it stemmed from, or where they believed it to be stemmed from. So how, as a Christian, how does that play out in your practice? Like, so how, I'm trying not to give away like my answer and asking you this question, but do you feel that it's ever conflicting in your work, or do you lead with being a Christian and just loving others and just caring and also being an MP? You made a commitment to your practice, right?
Yeah, and I think it's important. That's a great question because there's selective Christians. So Christians who weaponize the word to fit themselves, fit a specific narrative, or pedestalize themselves.
Come on.
And I think it's important as Christians to kind of void yourself of the world every single day. And the way I show up as a Christian is to love my neighbors just like Christ loved the church.
Come on.
So it doesn't matter what quote unquote sin you may be engaging in. That's not for me to judge. That's for me to see another human being who's my brother, who's my sister.
And that's it.
And I'm not here to judge
that's
that.
It.
I'm here to support that. So I think my clinical practice and my passion is God's gift to me.
Amen.
To be able to do
this work
on this earth, because I don't believe that we're meant to be here to suffer, to be so divisive, to have all these value judgments. That's not my place.
Right.
I fall short every day.
Okay.
Every day. And I expect to have forgiveness and to, repent for what I do every single day. So who am I to say like, oh, because people are perceiving this to be this.
Exactly.
And a lot of that stuff is misinformation and homophobia. Anyways, you're not acting Christ-like, making these value judgments. So let's start there.
Let's start there.
Why are you
Let's actually start there.
When, you're a whole side chick, or you're a whole, all this other
she'd have called the people side chick.
You got all this stuff going on, but you're worried about who's in bed with who.
Right. That's not your business. I promise you it's not.
Right. Nor are you in your walk of Christ if you're worried about what someone else is doing.
Yeah.
So I show up in my clinical practice and my research and how I engage people with the heart that like, this is my brother, this is my sister, I want to show up in space and community as Christ loved the church. Period. And that's not here to judge, that's not here to condemn. I'm here to help and be a vessel.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, because sometimes I feel like it's hard for me to relay that to people that just don't get it. But it's really simple.
Right.
Love like Christ loved us.
Right.
And his grace and mercy renews every day, so should ours.
Right.
And so that's why I wanted to ask you that, because we get stigmatized against, and let's be clear, she's not just an HIV specialist. She's an expert. Let's make that very clear, okay? And certified, okay? Tell the people that you certified. You better let them know. So, sometimes it does get hard. It gets heavy. But to your point of, you show up as who you are every day, as the Christian you are, as the provider you are, and that is how you lead this work, right? Like, not from any other space, and that's how it should be, literally.
Because if our work, honestly, is to bring people closer to Christ, how can I do that from a space of condemnation and judgment?
You better come on.
Like,
you better come on.
I need to show them what love looks like, show them what care looks like, show them how, regardless of differences in quote-unquote lifestyle, you still could show up and have a safe space where you're going to be cared for, you're going to be respected with me. And that may bring people closer to Christ if that's what they choose to do. Yeah. Because it's a very personal journey. Christians that try to force feed Christianity onto people.
It needs to just be authentic.
Right. You should be the epitome of what people need to, and be able to look at your life and say, whatever this person's navigating, I want to navigate that because how they show up, how kind they are, how genuine they are. Yeah. You don't need to force anybody down any path.
Yeah. And to close out on that conversation, because I could talk about this very subject all day. But I always say too, it's just like a preacher preaching on Sunday. People come in there who are sinners. People come in there who do not know Christ, right? But that doesn't mean you're not going to preach to them. Right. So in our work, I'm not going to not service you with my research. I'm not going to not service you as a provider because of who you choose to sleep in bed with. Right. That, again, it has nothing to do with me, and I could care less. Right. Because there is only one judge, and it ain't me. Right. So I want to talk about, you often talk about the audacity to thrive. Make it clear. Let's back up a little bit. So Bernice is a comedian to me. Like when y'all see like the serious, and she's very serious. She's about her business. She's about her work. But I always tell her like she is so funny to me but she be so serious. And like her concepts that she comes up with, I'll be like, oh, that's good, but it's also very funny. So talk about the audacity to thrive. What that means to you. What that looks like in your everyday life.
Yeah, I always say, although I'm all for Black girl magic, I want to one day get to the point where I just show up as the audacity of like a white man named Ted.
See what I'm saying?
No one on this earth got more audacity, as we're seeing with the political climate that we're in, as white cis het men. So in that way, I rebuke the whole notion of imposter syndrome. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
Because it's oftentimes put on us.
For sure.
And
that's what happened to me.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it doesn't allow space to talk about the systems that you could come into certain systems completely self-confident. You're just here for nourishment. You're here to eat. And yet people are telling you, oh, you know, you're not this, you're not that. Or, oh, do you really want to eat that? Do you really want that second roll? And then they're creating seeds of doubt. But instead of talking about the active deterioration that they're doing, they just put it on you and say you have imposter syndrome instead of giving an opportunity to critique these systems. So when I say I want to show up in that audacity, in that space, I no longer want to care or be burdened by those narratives. I want to show up like, hey, we work hard. We got all the credentials and then some.
And then some.
There is no DEI whatever here.
Right.
We're usually exceedingly and above
Come on.
what the baseline recommendations are, and show up with that authority, because why not?
Why
yes,
not?
it might be a threat, but and so what?
And so what? It's stuff that threatens us every day.
Exactly. We're navigating all kinds of things every day. So that's what I say, like actively pep talking your, I love Issa Rae.
Me too. Oh God,
I
love her
stuff.
Oh, do you?
Yep, when I'm like having something,
I love it.
I had to hype myself up. I be in the mirror like, girl.
Do you be rapping too?
Yep.
I would pay to hear you rap. Like
hit a beat or a note, but I be in the mirror. And just hyping myself up, reminding myself who I am,
and you that girl.
Who God said I was.
Absolutely.
Not what the world thinks I am, not whatever, and what my purpose is keeping aligned with that, and just showing up bold and audacious.
Come on.
And like the young ones say, and what about it?
The young ones?
Because I'm old.
Not you old, please.
What about it?
No, for real. I don't even know they little lingo. Like I at the conference yesterday, this is complete side, but I was like in the club. I was like, do they know what I'm talking about? Like, I was like, what the kids say?
I know.
But that's so funny.
They different.
We gotta get hip to the lingo. But I want to talk about your entrepreneurship, because I didn't mention it in the opening, but she is all things, okay? So what led you to entrepreneurship? Tell the people what you do, aside from your daily, like, and this is part of your daily life too, right? But, you know, the things you have degrees for. I mean, and your entrepreneurship is tied to that. But what led you to just starting your own?
In my entrepreneurship journey, I'm in real estate investment, and also I own a wellness center.
See, this is the stuff you don't get to talk about during your regular kikis. I'm learning so much about you. I did not know you were in real estate. We talk about, I feel like we talk about nursing a lot in like research, because that's the world we're in, right?
Yeah, like you know, like many Black women, multifaceted.
Come on.
So many layers to us, like an onion. So I bought my first property, never rented before. Bought my first property when I was 23, 24.
Wait. Please pause here. Never rented before. Did you hear what she said? Never rented before. Just keep on.
Yeah, so
I'm shook.
Bought a duplex when I wanted to like move out my parents' house officially, and it has literally worked out for me, because I was living rent free, basically, being able to rent out like one half of my home.
Yeah, come on.
And then leverage that asset, and was able to negotiate a really great deal on my first home, and leverage that asset to buy a home here. And during the whole PhD negotiation, being able to leverage the fact that, hey, I'm moving here and rent's super high in Baltimore City. Super high. What can y'all do? And finding out like Hopkins had like a down payment assistance program. So I was able to get, I think it was like probably around like 10 to 15,000 towards down payment costs. So then it made more sense to buy here. And then I've also bought like smaller properties through like tax liens and land through tax liens. And I've been able to build like
here too, or back at home?
Capitol Heights. So my main home is in Connecticut. Then I have my home in Baltimore City. Then I have had a property that I bought on tax liens in Capitol Heights in Maryland. Then I own some land and stuff in like Tennessee. So that's been
what the kids do.
So that's been like one of my nice like little funding sources to make the PhD stipend less of a stressor, because my cost of living is not like extreme, and also it has also helped me be able to open up a wellness center called Hydrofuse Health and Wellness in Ellicott City.
Yay.
And that journey was also through the collaboration of Black women. I literally went down to Annapolis to buy IV poles, because I said, you know what, I think I'm going to bring back my business idea, but here in Maryland, maybe make it mobile. They were selling IV poles. I just randomly saw it on like Facebook.
Really?
I said, you know, I'm going to go buy these poles. I have a basement, and it'll help activate the vision. And went down there, found out she was an anesthesiologist. And if you remember, I wanted to be an anesthesiologist.
Come on, for full circle.
Alignment,
Yes.
And in talking to her, I was like, why are you selling all this stuff? Found out she was closing the business. You know, I inquired about why and what happened. Did some research on the business and was able to like position myself to offer her to buy her business instead of starting from scratch, having the brand recognition. And so I ended up buying the trademark from her and buying more equipment and things, and opened up a wellness center in Ellicott City, and doing some amazing work and being able to leverage that into the work of Black women wellness and wholeness.
I'm just blown away, because like I knew I knew about the wellness center. Hold on. I just didn't know the backstory. Yeah. And everything you're saying, like, even I am like, oh my God, I can do it. Like, you know what I mean? And so I hope that everyone who's listening is hear what she said. She's never written it before. She is working as an NP while in a PhD program. Has a wellness, like, you can literally do whatever you put your mind to. You can. And that's exactly what your story tells us. Like, I want to figure out what I can do. Listen, like, that is so inspiring. It's literally so inspiring. So first of all, I got to pull up. I have to pull up. I have to see what's going on, because I already know you're great. So I know that everything you do, girl. Just girl.
Yeah, come on down. Have a lot of like great initiatives in the work as well to have more of a community engagement component to the wellness center.
Okay, come on.
There's a lot of like interesting things in the works.
Let me know. You know, that's my jam. Community engagement. Love it. And I really want to break out into the Baltimore community more with community engagement. Like, now that I've decided to stay here, I'm like, all right. Like, I feel like I was so like, oh, well, I'm going to go home anyway, so I don't want to start anything and then just stop. Because, like, when you immerse yourself into a community, you have to keep that going most. Like, it's to build that trust and to maintain it, right? So I've been just in my head about like, okay, time to tap into the Baltimore community. But that's neither here nor there. Not about me.
No, that's facts. And you will, and definitely opportunities to collaborate.
Yes, for sure. What I got to do it again? Do they do it with two or one? Is it? I don't know. But so I definitely want to ask, because you talked about your success in different facets, right? Like, for those of us who are still on that journey, like, how can we redefine success for ourselves as Black women?
Yeah, that's important. And one is knowing you are the person who defines it. Like, no one tells you who you are but God and yourself.
Girl, did you read chapter 1? Come on. That's exactly.
You're the narrator. You're the author. Exactly. You're the editor. You're all of it. You don't ever get to pass on your storytelling to someone else. No. That is your job. That's your point. And you get to rebrand as often as you want. You could have volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the remix of it all. So like, constantly just whoever you want to be at the time, you do the work and you figure out what that story is that you want to tell. And I like to tell like mentees or whoever, start at the end and work your way back, and then see what steps you need. Have that vision, like, okay, this is what I want to be, or this is what purpose looks like to me. And then once you define that and see what that looks like, then you could actually set actionable steps towards that. But if you're blindly just navigating the world, then you don't know what you're working towards. You don't know what that looks like. And that might be, okay, if I want to be a person that brings light and love into the lives of Black women and girls, however in whatever capacity that they need. That's super broad. So that could include owning properties where I particularly make sure I look at applications for people, women who are single moms, who are this, to make sure they have access to housing and don't have the stereotype that, oh, they're going to be like project, whatever, or these things. Like, give people a chance.
So everybody, you got a chance, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You got to give people a chance.
So it could look like real estate. Then you could see how all the pieces fit. But you have to have that ultimate vision in order to have those building blocks. I think that's first and foremost.
Because you can't redefine yourself if you ain't defined yourself. Come on. Thank you, Holy Spirit.
Period.
Because like people, just to your point, they go blindly throughout life and like have no real plan. And that's why a lot of us are failing. And you going back to the piece about education, like we just see somebody else doing it and just be like, oh, I can do that too, but can you? Because you don't know what it took for them to get there. You don't know how long it took. You don't know what what research they put into that, what their connections are, all of that. So it starts with, to your point, it's like it starts with having the plan. You got to start there. You got to know who you are, what your capabilities are. You know what I mean? You got to start with defining yourself, defining the plan, and then, like you said, you can go through volumes 1 through however many, but you can't start you're going to start at 0, but you can't start with nothing, if that makes sense. So that's different. You start at the ground, but you can't start with nothing, not being equipped with at least.
Exactly. And in our lane, a lot of people have mentors, advisors, and all those things. And that is what they perceive their end goal to be, but that's another human. What is it about that person or their things that you want to achieve? Disentangle yourself from other people, because you're your own separate being. So you may be able to say, like, my mentor, my advisor has strengths as this person. They're able to build community and connections in great ways. They're a
great spokesperson. I want to be able to be a great spokesperson. So make that your goal, but you don't need to transform into someone else, because then you lose yourself, and then at the end of the day, like, who are you? And I think that's important to really hone in on that. Like, who are you? Who do you want to be? And what are the steps are needed to get to that?
For you, not for you to become someone else, because what's placed on you and in you is not for anybody else anyway. So I like how you said, you didn't say dismantling, but what was the... Disentangle, thank you. Disentangle, like we were talking before we started recording, like these ideas that we have of people. We see people who are great at whatever they do, even if it's they're the ice cream man, I don't know. But we see this and often want to achieve that status. But that, again, that's, to your point, that's a person. Like what are the qualities that actually make them good at what they do, right? Like not just looking at the outcome and the
skills instead of embodying a person that you never achieve. And that's where it gets into like not letting people be the person narrating who you are. Because in academia and PhD, what they tell you are is preparing to be a PI at a R1 institution doing X, Y, Z. That's what the end goal. But what does that might not be for everybody.
That might not be for everyone.
Your passion might be teaching. Your passion might be community service. You might want to go into industry to have a seat at that table to what gets out into market. So you can't have someone tells you what that PhD, which is just one comma after your name, with multiple other things that come after that. You're a sister, you're this, you're that. What do all those things together? How do they intersect to be what you ultimately want to be? You're not just your degree.
Are y'all catching this? Like, are y'all picking up what she laying down? Like, because that's so good. That's literally so good. And I talk often about how people get, especially doctorates, to be called doctor, don't really care to do the work, don't want to do the work. They just want to make their name great. And it's like, you going to, at some point, that's going to fall. Because I can get into that, but like, you know, people that kind of, I was talking to my students and they were like, you know, there's ways around, like we were talking about this whole DEI thing and funding, and they were like, well, you can like, you can basically not tell the truth on the application. I said, but why would you want to do that? Just because it's easy to do doesn't mean that that's something you should be doing. We want to be truthful. We want to get it the right way, right? And so I often see people in our line of work that, and you could tell the difference. You could tell the people that's just there to get the money and to, you know, be called so-and-so, Dr. So-and-so. And you could tell the people whose heart is really in it and really care. Right. And that's why I appreciate the work you do so much, because from the first conversation we had, I'm like, oh, she really do this. Like, she really love what she does. Like, she love the people that she works with. Like, you really love, like, you champion Black women on an everyday basis. It is not just something you talk about or behind the screen on social media. Right. You know, like, you are a Black woman, you show up authentically as yourself every single day, and then you also champion and rally behind other Black women. So we appreciate you for that. I just had to give you your flowers. Thank you.
Definitely give you your flowers for that.
Oh man, thank you.
There's alignment in that.
Yeah, for sure. Now we got to talk about toxicity. You know, that's one of our favorite topics. So, you know, a lot of times we're in toxic environments, so we don't even recognize it, right? Like it's unfortunately become like ingrained in us to like, to ignore it almost, right? So how can Black women, first of all, how can we recognize that we're in a toxic environment? And then also, how can we, whether it's professionally, academically, like whatever space that is, right? How can we successfully navigate it?
Yeah, that's loaded. Because,
yeah, right?
You know, I just finished writing or contributing to a paper with one of my mentors, Dr. Shamika Thorpe.
I love her. Yes. Hey, Dr. Thorpe.
Yes. And it's about the strong Black woman stereotype and then the superwoman schema.
Oh my goodness. I gotta read it. You know, I love both of those things, or talking about both of them. Yes.
And it's just so crazy. Like, we emailed and we were like, we were both read by the work that we're writing.
That you're doing? Yeah. I love it.
Could be triggering to see that, like, how much we've been socialized to accept bare minimum, how much we've been socialized to normalize negativity and toxicity and think that's our birthright, or think that's what we deserve, whether it's in romantic relationships, whether it's friendships, and all those things. When we think about like attachment style, which is also part of this paper, how those things. I
have to read it tonight. Go ahead, sorry.
It's going to be a good paper once it's submitted.
Oh, okay. I thought it was already out. Okay. Y'all look out for it. Look out for it. Yes, congrats on that.
It will be definitely shared.
Please share it with me.
Such a good paper that could resonate with so many of us, even those of us who, you know, grew up in, you know, traditional households, all the things that are being weaponized now. It's just a broader narrative from society.
Love it.
Like, what is being said about Black women.
Love it.
So until you really do that work to kind of unpack a lot of this stuff, and diversify access to certain people, and diversify your social network, you might not even recognize the toxicity. Sometimes I even talk to friends and patients that say, oh, I want a Black female therapist, for example. I'm like, why do you want that? What is it about that dynamic that you want? And oftentimes they say, oh, they're going to understand my trauma. They're going to understand this. And I'm like, okay, are they going to understand it and normalize it? Are you going to be able to recognize somebody who's going to, like, say, that's normal that you went through that, or girl, I went through that too? Or are you going to have somebody that's going to hold space for you and
come
on.
There's a difference. Yeah.
That's horrible. That's terrible. That's abnormal. But sometimes our desires for community, for representation, which is good, I'll always advocate for that. sometimes it's also leaning into like reinforcing our dysfunction and reinforcing that normalized dysfunction. So recognizing it takes work. It takes work. I still sometimes struggle with it. And it's when I'm knee deep in it and in prayer that I'm like, hold up, this is starting to feel like some stuff I've recognized.
A light bulb finally go off.
I'm feeling a little triggered. There's something about this, and that requires space and time with yourself. If you're so booked and busy and just so distracted with worldly things
and just moving,
you won't even get a moment to feel that. So the first step is being able to sit with yourself and getting in tune with yourself to allow yourself to feel and recognize how certain people, certain situations, certain places are impacting you, and what can you do about it. And I understand with privilege, you're not always going to be able to get up and leave.
Right.
You know, sometimes you might have to sit in that space, but how are you arming yourself to be able to navigate that? Same thing when we talk about women in prep. You might be in a relationship where it's domestic violence. You cannot negotiate a condom. Putting on a condom is hit or miss. You might not have that agency, and you might not be able to leave because your children, because your bills,
your safety.
Your safety. You can't just get up and leave tomorrow. But PrEP is something you can control. Most people, if you can have access to a healthcare provider, which I understand not everyone does, but that is another way like PrEP could be implemented. So same thing with toxicity. You might not be able to get to leave because it fits into your greater purpose. But how do you navigate this? What are the tools you're adding to your tool belt? Who are the other mentors? Who are the other resources? Who are the church homes that you're adding in to be able to navigate this space?
I feel like you said y'all was reading what y'all wrote. Like, I feel like you reading me. I'm like, you know what? I need to figure out how can I hold space for myself. I'm like picking up all these gems that you laying down because we don't think about it enough. And I love how just there you connected toxicity and toxic environments to PrEP. You relating, everything is connected, y'all. Like relating what you do professionally to your everyday life, to your business life, to like, we can use these concepts in so many different ways, but we have to first think about it, right? Like we have to first even acknowledge that it's a thing. And a lot of times to the point that we've been making, like some stuff is just so normalized that we don't notice it. But when we do start noticing it, we gotta switch it up, especially in that toxic environment. Very great point about you may not be able to leave, but you can make a space or hold a space for yourself that where it looks different for you now.
Create like boundary, like, you know, especially in academia, there's like manufactured urgency. I don't have to respond
because that's great
right now.
I don't.
I'm triggered.
I don't.
I could take time and respond to it tomorrow.
And I have to sleep on
24
it.
24 hours, exactly.
I need to think about what I want to say because for one, I might, to your point, I might have anxiety by reading this. So I got to like shake that off first. I may have to think through because of that anxiety. Like I want to act off impulse and emotionally respond. But I got to think, like I got to put my professional cap back on. Like we can't just. So I came into academia with boundaries and I still have them to this very day. Now, I've relinquished some of them, but that was my choice. No one is going to ever be able to force me to. I chose to let go of certain stuff because it benefited not only me in the institution, but also the students. So I let go of a little bit of stuff, but it's because I care and it's because I love them and it's because I want to see them do great things, the institution do great things, all of that. But I'm just laughing back at that because that's so true. Manufactured urgency. That's exactly what it is.
Can you really be free if you can't have flexibility? So you may feel like it's relinquishing, but that's part of the strategy. Sometimes it's time and place.
That's real.
I may have these firm boundaries where it's like, I don't care, I'm responding. There's 8-hour lag time from the time you send an email to the time I respond. But in certain situations, it might require, like if it's a patient or something, it might require, you know, so
look into it.
You, in your liberation, in your agency, in your walk, there has to be flexibility and there has to be grace. There are times you might face microaggressions that trigger something in you, and you might have to snap, crackle, pop, and
see what I'm saying, y'all?
Let someone know, like, hold up. But you have to hold grace for yourself that you are human, that you're not going to show up perfect
not every
single
time.
instant. And the devil works hard.
He do.
24/7, he is on his purpose. So you
Sure
have
enough.
to understand, just as much as you're in your walk, the devil be on his mission too. And you might fall short, and have grace and space to know, okay, hey, I slipped up in this moment, or I was really triggered and I said some things that was maybe unbecoming, and being able to hold space for that and pivot.
Yeah.
And that's true freedom, being
For sure.
able to like navigate whatever waters you're in.
Come on, freedom. Come on, freedom. Girl, we can stay here till tomorrow. We gotta have her back. Like, listen, we just like touched the surface. We didn't even get into all the stuff that the people need to hear. So we definitely have to have you back if you be willing at some point. We'll talk offline about it. Absolutely. This has been so great. Like I said, you dropped so many gems, and you poured into not only me but everyone listening. So like I said, like, share with someone who you feel could benefit from this, and make sure you let us know, how can the people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media, the NP That Cares, on
Period.
Twitter, if you guys are still engaging with Twitter, on Instagram, X, right? Blue Sky.
What is Blue Sky?
It's like the academic Twitter where people divest.
I got an email about that. Okay.
So now we're on Blue Sky.
Okay, I'm gonna get me one of those.
So
okay.
There's a lot of like people in our space on there. And people slowly trickling in. So yeah, you can find me on there, LinkedIn, Brenice DeRosa, Brenice D. I'm findable. I'm on, Black Girls Can Talk. I'm on that page, liking and
yes.
So
she is. Thank you.
There too.
Yes.
So wherever Black women are, I'm usually in community and in space.
Amen.
Healthy
Come on.
Black women.
Come on. And healthy spaces.
The toxic spaces. That's
Come
my
on.
boundary.
Period. Well, thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for watching. I'm Dr. McCree. That's soon to be Dr. Bernice.
Let's go.
Yes, come on. Yes. And we hope you enjoy. Until next time. Love y'all.
Bye.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Black Girls Can Talk. I hope you felt heard, empowered, and inspired by today's conversation. If you love what you heard, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your girls. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at blackgirls_can talk to stay updated on future episodes and join the conversation online. Got something you want us to talk about or want to be a guest on our show? Hit us up on social media or visit our website at blackgirlscantalk.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, Black girls can talk, and we've got a lot to say. Until next time, stay powerful.